Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the ABC Breakfast Show. As you can see, there's two elves here that are sharing a glass of milk. I don't know about the elves. You know what I mean? I'm uncertain that the elves are right for Australia because it just seems like a lot of work, and it's really hot here. And also, it's like I'm just gonna quit. Like it's this. Look, the Australia that my family was brought up into, we had to learn how to just if there was a problem, we had to solve it just quickly ourselves. And you know what I mean? We couldn't rely on the government because the government would just, you know what I mean? The government would always, there wasn't a government. So if we relied on the government, we wouldn't have anything to eat. And so I'll just hang them up for later. And I reckon they'll be nice in a pot with a bit of garlic and perhaps some parsnips. I think you want to leave that on all day. You just want to, if you're having elves for a nice kind of supper, you want to just quickly snap the necks. You want to de-elve them, which means taking off all their skin, and boil them in a pot with perhaps, as I said, some parsnips, some potatoes, maybe some spelt barley. Some spelt barley will go really well with elf this time of year, or any time of year, really. So if you find a little elf running around, digging holes all over the place, just snap its neck. You might think that that's not nice, but you've got to really woman up if you're going to be down under, right? This isn't Little Britain. This is fucking Australia, right? So we've all had to do it. We've been here for a while, whether you're Irish or Scottish or English. You've got to learn how to break a fucking elf's neck over your fucking knee, pluck all its fucking skin off, and then boil it in a pot with some parsnips. If you're not really up to that, it's not really the country for you, I'm afraid. You should maybe you could all chip in, get a little Kentucky cruise back to the motherland, as they call it. I don't know why they call it the motherland, because clearly all the mothers came here. If you're not a mother that's willing to break a fucking elf's neck over your knee, I don't know what you are. You're some type of beauty queen, are you? With all your lip filler and fucking eyebrow fucking extensions and fucking little titty fucking silicontosis. I might actually have a bit of silicontosis because I spent my younger years, and by younger years I mean my man years, as a glazier, as a man glazier. And I'd use probably, a fucking semi-truckload of silicon, and I would quite often give it a little lick and put it back in my mouth. So there's a really good chance I'm going to die so that you can all see the view of the fucking of the bullets as they're flying. Obviously, I didn't actually do any work in Bondi. It's according to my children's mother, I haven't done any work. Well, I can show you the work because it's still there. There's plenty of silicons, plenty of glass, and really, we're in a predicament, aren't we, as a country right now? Right? We're being told that this attack was an attack on the Jewish. It was, of course, it was an attack on the Jewish Australian people, but it was an attack on all Australians, and not in the way that Anthony Albanese says it, in the way that I say it. Your local beach Karen, okay? You didn't know that beach Karens exist because mostly we stay out of things. Yeah, we're just busy cooking up some lovely, bone stew or some chicken stock, or we're just, maybe making some lobsters. We call them crayfish down here. We don't call them lobsters. We call them crayfish. Pickled octopus, all the types of things that we enjoy from the bounty of the ocean. But one thing that we do not want, as we're, at the ocean, is dead Jews, okay? Because once there's dead Jews, there's fucking a whole bunch of other shit starts going wrong. provably, non-stop, okay? So you have intruded on our aquatic land, which I don't know what this is where Anthony Albanese, he's not an aquatic person. He's not an aquatic Australian. He's kind of he's a patron of the Australian cruise ship, as we like to call it. It's a little cruise ship that supplies all the things. It gives you a little TV with MASH reruns, as I've said this morning. It gives you little payment checks so you can go and, I don't know, go to Coles or Woolworths and buy some things. And it gives you like lots of things that you can enjoy as a patron of the Australian cruise ship. But I'm coming to you and I'm speaking from the actual Australia, which is basically if you draw a line, a never-ending line around the entire continent of Australia, you'll notice that at every single point on that line, there is a connection between the water and the land, right? Obviously, the land is Aboriginal land. Is everybody clear about the land is Aboriginal land? And so this was the double whammy. This was an attack on Aboriginal land against a tribal people. So this was an attack on Aboriginal people. And it was also an attack on Atlantis, because Atlantis is that line, right? It's the line around that rock that we protect for the Aboriginal people. And Anthony Albanese's gotten too big for his boots and he's forgotten about the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands year old contract that the Atlanteans have with the Aboriginal people. And that the Britons have, they've got a little signature somewhere in there. But that British signature can disappear overnight. If the British people are not going to pick up their fucking boots or pull themselves up by their boots and learn how to be Australian, then I think we should trade them all in for someone who is satisfactory, more willing to live a life that isn't kind of, that isn't this pedantic, constantly sweeping, constantly shopping, constantly decorate. We can't do that here. Even now, we didn't do all this work for you to just come here and fucking parade around. I saw an ad the other day this actually wasn't an ad, it was a comedian, and he was speaking to a young English girl, and she had an Indian husband, and they'd come here to watch the Ashes. And she was kind of prancing around like just because she had a little English accent that she was the rightful inheritor of Australia. And it's that type of nonsense that really does a lot of damage to the world, okay? Now, it is true that a lot of corporations and companies have actually hired English people, because it's amazing what you can do with an English accent. You can move mountains with an English accent. If I actually start speaking in an English accent, you'll notice that I get a little bit of Nigella going on. And when the Nigella starts, well, the boys just go crazy. My Nigella brings all the boys to the yard, and they're like, it's better than yours, because damn right, my elves are better than yours. I could teach you, but I'll have to charge. And when I crack their skulls open and lick the brain matter from inside the skull, I was taught this by an Aboriginal fellow in Arnhem Land. I travelled up there early in the 1870s with nothing but a briefcase, a suitcase that you would call it, and I offered myself to the Aboriginal folk of Arnhem Land, and in exchange for this, they showed me about their secrets of the land, and the secrets of the land that I showed them was how to enjoy elves, because as more Northern Hemisphere people eventually gather down here onto Australian or Aboriginal soil, they have brought these fucking things with them, okay? Very much like they brought the rabbits, cane toads, foxes, wild pigs, brumbies, horses, all these things that goats, okay? None of these things they were just kangaroos. and Aboriginal people. And now there are fucking elves everywhere, okay? And so as we sat there around the campfire enjoying a corroboree, and we sucked the brain juice right out of the elf's eye, and I exposed my breast to them all and allowed their milk to cover me. This was how we arranged this agreement, okay? And I just haven't seen a lot of expats, as you call them, contributing anything near like what I contributed in the 1870s, okay? My breasts were completely covered with the milk of the tribal men of Arnhem Land. And all I see from the breasts of this young generation of direct immigrants or of descendants of late-comer immigrants is kind of a very entitled sense of themselves, in which they feel like their breasts are for their own use and that they can utilize their breasts as kind of postcards of sin that they can sell on the open internet market, which is very clearly an invasion. You know, just because you're sending pictures, the Aboriginal people, I will remind you, they're very anti-pictures. See, they say that the picture actually steals your soul. And this is what they told me. So there were no pictures of this ceremony that took place in the 1870s in Arnhem Land. And that's how they like to keep it, okay? So there's really two options. You know, you can remove this thing called OnlyFans, and you can stop making money from your sin. And you should contribute your breasts to be ceremonially milked. You should enjoy some elf brain. And it's so easy now. Look, all you need to, you go down to Bunnings, or prefer maybe Sydney Tools is a better place. You get a DeWalt drill, okay? You get a 15 millimeter spade bit. It goes straight in the eye of the elf, and it just mushes the brain up into a beautiful, maybe it's just a pinch of salt, okay, a little, and of course, just shove a bay leaf in there. No elf brain milkshake is complete without one single bay leaf, just shoved directly in the eye socket, wrapped around, and it kind of just exudes that bay essence right up into the brain matter, and it goes down a treat. I'm going to save some of that for later. Now, obviously, there's a problem with education. Okay, there's a problem with education with immigrants coming here. There's a problem with children that are being born here not being educated to the actual situation we have here. Atlanteans have a multi-millennial reputation for harmony. And this attack on a beach, no less, was a complete attack on the Kingdom of Atlantis. And so there will be retaliation, okay? We won't have bloodshed on our beaches unless we're doing it in the form of elves, which we do at a 3-quarterly event under the full moon. We all crack an elf's skull on the beach and suck it up. We boil it in its own juices around a beautiful fire as we welcome you all to country, and we suck the elves' brains out of their skull. Look, some of you might call this cannibalism because obviously we're not talking about elves. You know what I mean? We're not actually talking about elves. Aren't real. They're not a real thing. So the people that we're talking about are people that have brought elves here. Okay. Now, you're not going to hear about the people who we call elves because, again, this is a multi-century agreement that we have with our media, with the government, with the British government, the Irish government, and the Scottish government in order to participate in our cultural traditions and our exchange program that we have with the Aboriginal people. And this has brought direct violence in an unsatisfactory way. It's not unsatisfactory. It is not to be. And so there is going to be direct retaliation. And this is very much like one of the previous retaliations that the Atlanteans did was the War of the Emus. Okay? There has been the plague of the rabbits. There has been the plague of the mice. There has been locust plagues. There has been cane toad plagues. Basically, all the things that should have brought your attention to this a lot earlier. It's all in the book, okay? Now, what happened when the original Britons arrived here, and the original Irish and the original Scottish and all the people, is that they were very much aware of what that good book says, the Bible. Everything's in the Bible, right? So you need to put down your travel brochure for 5 minutes. You need to pick up the Bible again. Otherwise, things are going to get fucking all out biblical down here. Okay? You know, that was the agreement. The Atlantis Aboriginals said, yes, you may occupy our land, you may do this, you may farm. And look, there's so many places where you've gone against this. And because you have simplified this down to an agreement with the Aboriginals, there has been a constant attempt to pull the wool over their eyes. And so we've decided to show you the same in return and surround you in an interdimensional, absolutely unstoppable Atlantean projection that will make your fucking bones and brain boil in your own body if you try and oppose it. So I wouldn't suggest opposing it, okay? I'm going to leave Yoda just here, just so that you're aware, okay? Sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. I'm going to put the straw just there as well, because we all know that Yoda never refuses an Atlantean ceremony. Okay, so it's really, if you do get this special privilege of being offered to participate in an Atlantean Aboriginal milkshake ceremony, you should count yourself lucky. And it is the largest of offensive action to refuse it. Okay? Now I'm going to put away the English accent for a little bit, because we need to get down to the business of the video. Now, the video this morning was called "Would You Like Fries with That?" Now, obviously, this is a reference to the wonderful fast food chain, the franchise of McDonald's. And it's a reference to a technique called upselling, which basically sells you more things. And it's, it can be relatively harmless. It really can. When it's at a burger, when it's contained to a drive-through window, and the most it's going to cost you is perhaps some indigestion and a couple of extra dollars. But the real problem is that this has spread to places that it shouldn't have spread to. Now, you may think we're archaic, that we're devilish, that we're speaking of such ills as sucking the brain matter out of an elf on a beach as he's being slow cooked. But everyone is free to participate or not, and the elf, in a lot of cases, these elves are sadistic, weird little fuckers. You know what I mean? They kind of sacrifice themselves to this. They offer themselves up. I don't know what it is. And so that's very different than a hospital, a public hospital, which is supposed to be a place that you can go to get fixed, upselling you on things like surgery or cancer. Like, oh, did you come in for a sore throat? Oh, well, you've got cancer. Would you like cancer with that? Would you like a mental illness with that? Would you like diabetes with that? Can I put you down for one count of diabetes? What have you got? Lower back pain? Okay. What else? What else can I? How about I walk you through the showroom? In the showroom, we've got a few new things now. Are you hideously overweight or just a little bit chubby? Well, we have something for that as well. What else can I help you with? You don't want to come back. It's very difficult to get in. Yoda just dropped his straw. Do not drop a single. Do not miss a single drop of that, Yoda. Give it a little stir as well. There you go. Would you like fries with that? Should not be in a hospital. Can everyone, like, if this was a classroom, could I get a show of hands to exactly how many people think that this upselling technique of would you like fries with that belongs in an emergency room or in a GP's office or in a specialist? Does this, especially when we consider that the environment we're in is clearly very different to the one that we've been told or the one that was shown to us on the static television that we were forced to watch for 30 years with a concentrated, calculated public relations indoctrination that we were all exposed to, most predominantly coming from the United States of America. All you need to do now is take the government's argument that it has had towards the social media and then just walk back through time and just turn it onto the television. And the television, which is the place that we all saw Ronald McDonald, which again, I have nothing against Ronald. I wouldn't want to dare upset the McDonald family, especially because I think it's my great-great-grandfather was a Scotsman who was a red-headed man who rocked up in Queensland, and his name was actually Ronald McDonald Cameron. Okay, so this isn't on McDonald. As I said, when you're going through a McDonald's drive-through, this is really just a success story of an unstoppable Ray Kroc, unstoppable entrepreneur, a couple of ingenious brothers with a wonderful with a wonderful surname and a beautiful history of cattle management in the Scottish Highlands. And it's kind of one of the success stories of television. But as I say, people took notice. People took notice of this effect. They said, there's a McDonald's on every street corner. And it becomes clear when you go, who were the people that were most against McDonald's? They were doctors. And so the doctors got together and they said, if a silly clown, you know what I mean, and some simple little burgers can make this much money with these stupid, backwards fucking Scotsmen, imagine what we can do as doctors, as the heroes of the war, which is what the doctors had made themselves, because all the real heroes of the war were either shaking in a corner with shell shock, or they were dead, or they were limbless, or they were, there was a real series of afflictions that fell upon the true heroes of World War II. So the doctors were the only ones really that could speak. And while certain companies projected on the television with the newly developed remote control, a simple solution, a beautiful, comfort food of a hamburger and fries and a Coke, the doctors who had felt that their time was not up, that they hadn't received enough glory from the post-war period, got together and started scheming. They schemed and 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 they got to planning their own McDonald's strategy. And how successful have they fucking been? Really? How successful have they been? It's if it wasn't so horrific, it would be a real success story. And look, you can argue about the health of McDonald's, okay, but it isn't intended to have every day. It is clearly a comfort food. It is the most strongly desired series of nutritional elements all combined in a wacky kind of novelty, childish fantasy world. It's the Christmas of food. Okay, it's the Christmas of food, and it could be a lot better. They could look in the history books of the McDonald's and realize that the McDonald's were actually quite good at managing cattle. And they could look at the world and say, look, maybe if we stop thinking about humans for a bit, if we put down the sword and stop fighting the doctors head on, and we say, look, the doctors have done a really good job at condemning us as the McDonald's Corporation. And as the Coca-Cola Corporation, they've told everyone that we're poison and all these things and that we should be avoided. And because they've dared to go through the golden arches, now they have to fucking be exposed to all types of horrific torture and torment and abuse and theft to appease the doctors on their never-ending battle against the Coca-Cola Corporation and the McDonald's Corporation. And it's on this day that those two entities, Coca-Cola Corporation and the McDonald's Corporation, rise up and say, we're not going to fight this war anymore, because our continuation of fighting this war is just enlarging the egos and the attention that these hideous doctors of death are bringing on you all. So we're going to look at some other problems. Look, the problem of industrial agriculture is significant, to say the least. One of the most damaging agricultural products that there is that right there, right? Is soy. Because what happens, very much like when we crack open an elf's skull and drink the beautiful milk from its brain, which is a sustainable way to enjoy a milkshake. We don't need to cut down a wonderful, sometimes 40, 50 foot high ecosystem and plow every single living creature into its own milkshake. All the milkshake of an elf milkshake is contained within the skull of each individual elf. If you were to use the alternative soy product to make a milkshake, like this one I prepared earlier, you would indeed have to burn down a 40, 50 foot high ecosystem of diverse biosphere, ecosystem, interconnected web of anti-entropic natural selection biology. You would have to replace thousands and thousands of life forms in the forms of fungus, bacteria, insects, plants, mammals, rodents, birds. The list really goes on. And there's the list as well of the things that we're not even able to see yet. So all of that is gone, and then you plant just this here, just that, just soy, and then if that wasn't bad enough, you spray it with chemical fertilizer and pesticides so that only soy boys are left. Pretty horrific stuff, really. Pretty horrific stuff. Now, yes, in the race against the medical onslaught and the doctor onslaught and the hospital onslaught, the McDonald's Corporation has unfortunately been seen to use these shortcut measures like soy and grain and corn to keep up demand with the never-ending demand for our beautiful burgers. And so on this day, this is the day that we say no. We say no to that, and we say yes to beginning the new strategy, which soy will be incorporated into. It will be reincorporated in a harmonious way. It's just slightly more difficult, but now we have access to these wonderful computing skills like AI and things like this, and obviously this communication. And translators. So it's going to fall on the innovators, the young generations of the world, to make this happen. And we can't make that happen when we have people like Anthony Albanese gluing our fucking eyes to the selected programming of the previous generation, because that will just keep the whole merry-go-round going. You know what I mean? It's just like ding, 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 ding. Now, there is a nostalgic wonder to a merry-go-round. I will agree to that. That nostalgic wonder of the merry-go-round kind of disappears when 1 out of every 10 children is being kidnapped from the merry-go-round and sold into international sex slavery. It's really amazing what will happen to a society that turns the other cheek as 50, 40 feet of ecosystem is burnt down in order to provide a single crop that is resource intensive like no other, to provide an alternative to something that is easily extracted from the inside of an elf's skull. And considering that elves are now officially on this day, according to the ABC, the Australian amateur broadcasting community, and you might say, isn't that AABC? And I'd go, no, this is Australia. It's the ABC. It's the ABC. They told me to say it exactly like that. Exactly like that. So if someone says the ABC, you go, what's that? The A, Australia. Again, it's pretty easy to remember. You know, it takes a little while. You know, if you don't get it, maybe your kids will. ABC. Okay. Alrighty. I lost my little train of thought there, but I think this pretty much ties up all the loose ends. Without a wonderful, diverse, and look, at sometimes chaotic broadcasting community, you're not going to be made aware of these wonderful alternatives. If I wasn't able to project this, you wouldn't know about elf brain milkshakes. You wouldn't know that soy and monocrop grain and agricultural products are actually the most harmful commodities, the harmful inventions really in the world. And you wouldn't know how good I look in a little blue bikini. And the reason I'm wearing a little blue bikini is because I have kind of a little bit of a rivalry going with a YouTuber back in the homeland who also enjoys dressing up like a woman and speaking about philosophy. And she, in her constant attempt to try and outdo me, has basically done a video where she's dressed as a mermaid and telling everyone that you shouldn't have children. And this could have been taken as something that I should attack, but it wasn't. It was something that made a single tear run down my eye. Because I don't want to live in a world where men that have decided to be women can't have a baby because they've decided that the world is too dangerous. I can't bear to think of that world. And I think it's to do with the concentrated amount of people that are residing in the United Kingdom on top of each other and basically stacked upon the bones of their ancestors for thousands of years, and the shit of their ancestors, and the graves of their ancestors, and the fucking hideously, I don't know, it makes my bones chill. Maybe perhaps you think that drinking an elf's skull juices is weird, but I can assure you it's less weird than, setting up apartment buildings on burial ground, thousands of generations of strangely preserved ancestors. There is really no reason for that, because human beings, quite like elf brain juice, are a wonderful, nutritious supplement for an ecosystem. But they have a tendency to pollute the groundwater and cause severe mental disorder, which I can say, John writes, he said, hope you get the mental health care you very much need. Shamonia. My nickname when I was in primary school was Shanina. So you've fucking spelt that wrong. It's clear that John Wright has been drinking groundwater polluted with thousands and thousands of years of dead Englishmen, and has decided to comment here on this international McDonald's Coca-Cola broadcast. And that's a real shame. It's very much like foot and mouth. I mean, it's exactly, what did they say about foot and mouth? It's like the foot and mouth was caused by cows in England eating dead cows. And really, if you've ever drank from a water fountain or a tap or a McDonald's or a cafe or a bakery or a school, anywhere, or a churchyard, maybe you've been skipping around the gravestones at a churchyard and you've had a little drink from the water fountain there, and you indeed have foot and mouth syndrome. And it's been really argued how we let you know in the most efficient way, how we actually inform the Britons that they are indeed slowly but surely poisoning and going insane, being poisoned by their own weird obsession with stacking human beings in the same spot and eating and drinking their own dead. It was agreed that this would last 28 years and that it would be described through a series of films. And appropriately, the star of the first film was an Irishman by the name of Cillian Murphy. And he kind of showed us thing where monkeys, which is how Englishmen would describe everyone else as monkeys. And so a little bit of poetic license there we've used. So you've been afraid of monkeys and viruses and all these things. You've projected this fear around the world. You've been afraid of everybody who you've called monkeys, including our cricketer, Michael Simmons, who was hideously killed by your act of war that you called the COVID-19 pandemic. And this continuation of this fear of monkeys. And look, do I look like a monkey, or do I look like a sexy fucking Atlantean sea goddess? I think I look like a sexy Atlantean sea goddess. I don't look like a monkey. Perhaps if I don't shave for a couple of weeks, yes, I get a bit hairy, but that's because the sun down here is really dangerous. The never-ending, beautiful and endless sun-drenched wonderland is a little bit dangerous. And so it seems like Britons have adapted to grow lots of hair down here. We've adapted to grow lots of hair instead of turning our skin to a beautiful and appropriate black. And look, horses for courses. Some people turn black and some people just turn hairy. And I like to shave all the hair off and stay inside because I still am very English, And I don't want to get my skin too burnt. I like to stay a beautiful complexion of this kind of very kind of bronzed white. This bronzed, beautiful British white that appears if you've spent enough time down here. Okay? So there is going to be a very, very, very selective process in order to select which Britons are not subject to too much poisoning from drinking their dead people's milkshake. And if you are selected as one of the lucky people in a lottery, quite like the lottery that was picked out to decide which Australians would go and try and raid some impossible beach with a bunch of crazy fucking Turks and try and run up a fucking mud-filled fucking slippery slope while getting machine gunned down, or, sent to Africa or Egypt, You know, were you threatened by us down here? It seems like you might have been threatened by us down here in the colonies. Well, the tables have turned. The ships are circling the United Kingdom. And the virus is being let out. You're all being made aware that you're drinking dead people milkshakes non-stop and it's sending you wobbly-woo. And so it's really time to enter your children's name into the lottery. Okay, very simple. You pick your favorite children, or if you're, nice, you pick them all. You put them all their names in a little on a form that will be distributed to every house. Every house. We're going to cover this non-stop. This is going to be a wonderful moment. We're going to find out who of the Brits is allowed out of Britain. Now, we're going to start at Scotland and we're going to start in Ireland, okay? These are the two places that we're going to start. The last people on the ship are going to be the Englishmen, unfortunately, because despite all this effort, this to warn you, to constantly try and think, to say, stop with the attacking, stop with the psychological abuse, stop with the retardation, stop with all the virusy pandemic, Bill Gates bullshit, Y2K, non-stop, really. Pharmaceutical, no-fault divorce, insurance scam. Oh, my God. Imagine. They're just sitting in there drinking their dead people milkshake, sitting in there on their typewriters, and then on their telex machines, and then on their fucking laptops, and then on their tablets, and then on their smartphones. And now, as they sit there and try and type out, how are we going to beat those fucking Australians? Oh my God, those Australians are monkeys. They're fucking backwards monkeys. I can't believe. Oh, this is thirsty work. Thirsty fucking computer work here. We're going to win the war just like we won the other war. We're going to break Enigma and win the fucking war against the Australians. No, you're not. No, you're not. Oh, dear. Oh, dear, man. Just when you thought you were about to, you had that Nigel Farage, he was walking around. He was clearly fucking good with his words, wasn't he? Having a fag. I'm Nigel Farage. I'm basically going to genocide all the people here that aren't white. I make sure that I don't drink filtered water. I drink it straight out of the tap. I like to taste me granny. Nigel Farage, your man in England. I'm Nigel Farage. I'm your man in England. I'm about to tell you how we're going to win the war. I'm basically Winston Churchill. All we've got to do is just kill all the black fellas, make sure that the other black fellas don't know that we're killing the black fellas. And by black fellas, I mean Australians that are slightly more black than we are. It seems like the constant, fresh, beautiful water and vitamin D has enlarged their brain capacity, and it has made our brains mush. And they've found a new nutritional source, which is elf brains. And we just kept sending the elves down there. So we've really got to fucking sort this out. Oh, we've got to sort it out. Come on, get on board. Reform UK. Heil Hitler. Let's get the band back together again. We've brought the German president here as well. He spoke to the king. Oh, get a mouthful of that fucking dead milkshake. Oh, yes, swirl it around and drink the dead. Swirl it around and drink the dead. You're cannibals, cunts. You are a cannibalistic people. You have gone bonkers. You've gone round the twist. Alice was right. Alice was right. So let's see. And look, this is the thing. You're really lucky that you're even getting this message, aren't you? If I wasn't British, if I didn't still have the spark of loyalty and the beautiful history and the Druid traditions, all these things, then I wouldn't even be here telling a bunch of limeys how they're going to save themselves. But very much like the Titanic, there is a decision that needs to be made. And so it's women and children first. And by women and children, I mean it's children first. And without the internet and without social media, you're not going to be able to talk to your children. Now, if we were Russian or Ukrainian or American or African or anything else apart from British and Irish and Scottish and Welsh and fucking Celtic, Druidic fucking people, we wouldn't allow the people to talk to their children. But of course we're going to, because we need to transfer all of the knowledge, our knowledge, not yours, our knowledge, from there to here. And at the same time, we will attempt the largest carbonization of an island that has ever existed. Because without carbon, and this is the greatest of all ironies, without carbon, all that dead people milkshake is going to constantly be there, right? And we've got wonderful history and beautiful architecture and Big Ben and, you know, Westminster Abbey and Lords, all these wonderful things that are assets of the entire empire. So we need to pile carbon high. We need to pile like probably 6 meters at the minimum high of carbon material, which is wood chips and grass, like just non-stop carbon. Now, it will literally break down. It will take all the nitrogen of all the concentrated dead people and shit and fucking piss and fucking vinegar, and it will neutralize it and create a wonderful, abundant soil that can then be, you know, utilized efficiently over maybe, let's hope, over a 60, 50-year period. So this will become the job if you remain in England. You're already there. You've already been exposed to it, but this is what we need to do. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So we can't do the same thing there that we do here because it's all different. There isn't enough sun. There isn't enough stuff. So we need to basically neutralize all that pathogens, all the fucking disgusting fucking heavy metals, all the thing in this fashion. Otherwise, we lose our history forever. So, yeah, pretty important stuff. I bet you didn't think it was a Highlander McDonald clan that would come to your rescue and fucking do it, did you? And most importantly of all, we need to shut the doctors up for a little bit. Okay, the doctors clearly have no fucking idea what they're fucking talking about unless, of course, they do, which is very difficult to say. But basically, I would put it at the doctors doing the least amount of promotional activity are probably the most important, right? So this immediately exposes the plastic surgeons, the dentists, the chiropractors, the physios, all the fucking wankers that are constantly sending fucking pamphlets out. And we need all that paper to send to fucking England to stop them drinking their own dead. All right? There's going to be plenty of other jobs, okay? You can crack your own back while you're planting trees or fucking, I don't know, wheelbarrow loading fucking loads of organic matter on the streets of London. And then, yeah. I'm just reading John Wright's comments again. I think John wants a bit of attention. Do you want a bit of attention, John? Oh, you've gone, wish I could stay home getting pissed all day. Yeah, well, I'm not doing that. That's what the English specialise in, and I've had enough time down here to not do that. I drink water with a little bit of electrolytes in it. And I have one Coke Zero at lunch, and then I have one Coke Zero at dinner. Let me just... hopefully that's back. Right. So I'm going to end here as I take a beautiful sip of wonderful, sustainable and regenerative soy milk. Blimey, I bet you didn't think that was good. It is. I'm going to end with an invitation to Abigail Thorne, who is obviously my opponent over there in Britain. And I'm going to say maybe come down to Australia and stop drinking dead people and thinking that that's a good idea. You know what I mean? There's plenty of options down here. You'll feel better. We made an entire movie about drag queens. Okay, like it's like maybe don't go to Sydney right now. Sydney obviously is the drag queen capital, but it went a little bit too heavy on the ketamine, I'm guessing. And so as it eases back, but still the culture has been deturfed enough to be quite happy here. And that probably goes to all the trans people in England. Your transness is probably a call to action to get the attention of the people, to warn them that they're drinking dead people. And you just kind of got swept up in the medical industrial pharmaceutical fucking milkshake brigade. And so no judgment if you want to try hormones and things like that. I might even try some. I might try some hormones. This is completely unhormoned. I just invoke the hormones with my own brain power. That's all I do. I just, like, obviously, if this is a naturally occurring reactive strategy for human stability, we should have access to that within our own capacity. It's just, you have to just get yourself away from all the hustle and bustle. And you have to, spend a whole lot of time ceremonially fucking inducing an uptick in the feminine hormones, I'm guessing. And then in that case as well, you don't lose the masculine hormone. So you end up as this like very kind of rugged woman, which is attractive. Most men find a rugged woman attractive. Stephen Wells here this morning said, "You are a very beautiful woman. You would be my bride, but not my best. Maybe my third or fourth choice, Allah willing." That's cool, man. Third or fourth, I'm cool with that. But yeah, I'm not available. I'm looking for a couple of brides myself, And by brides, I mean I don't ever want to get married ever, because everyone who I've tried to marry has tried to kill me. And look, it's not about me. I didn't want to make this about me. I'm not going to make it about me. Okay. I think I've covered everything. I just better make sure that that's there as well, so that everyone knows that I'm the official e-safety commissioner for the British Empire. Wonderful bells. Even small bells will bring a wonderful amount of joy to your life. I suggest that every morning, as you rise and enjoy either soy milk or elf brain milk, or perhaps in a retro kind of fashion, you enjoy some wonderful cow's milk that doesn't have mad cow disease, because it's from Australia. I suggest that you ring a bell. Ding da da bells, ding da da da, and everybody should ring the bells of England to let them know that there's very important news from the colonies arriving. Oranges and lemons, that kind of thing. Just ding, ding. For the next week, let's say non-stop bells for the next week to declare the news. Alrighty. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all tomorrow.